All right, this video is going to show you how to find angles, missing angles from angles on a line. This is one of our vocabulary words that we've learned. I'm just going to remind you that angles on a line, they add up to 180 degrees. So everything we're going to do today is going to use that relationship. So let's look at example 1. It says 3 lines meet at a point. In a complete sentence, we're going to describe the relevant angle relationship in the diagram. So it's always going to tell us to write a sentence first. So right here, if you look at the diagram, we have a straight line. Okay, that means that these 3 angles, A, 144, and A, are on that straight line. So we're going to write A, 144, and A. Those are the 3 angles. Are called angles on a line. And we're going to write which means. That means they add up to 180 degrees. So here's our sentence. It just tells us what angles we're talking about. The vocabulary word that we have is angles on a line. So here's our vocabulary word. And then we just write what that means. That means they add up to 180. So there's our sentence. Now we're going to write an equation now to solve for A. Well, if we know those 3 angles add up to 180, this is what our equation looks like. We have 3 angles, A, 144, and A. When we add them up, that's going to give us 180 degrees. Now we have some like terms in here. We have A and we have A. Remember, that's really 1A and 1A. So 1A plus 1A is 2A. That's still equal to 180. And now we're just going to solve this equation. So I'm going to subtract 144 from both sides. So 2A equals, I'm going to take my calculator, and I'm just going to do 180 minus 144. That gives us 36. Divide both sides by 2. So A is 18. Now this question was just asking for us to find the value of A. That's all it was asking for. And we did that. So we found the value of A, so we're done. This whole question has been answered. All right, we're going to try this again. This time example 2 says that 3 lines meet at a point. We're going to write our sentence telling us what that angle relationship is. Now, real quick, let me move this out of the way here. I'm going to make it smaller so that we can move it up. Okay, so let's try this again. So here's our diagram. You notice right here we have a straight line. So we have 3 angles on that line. We have 1, we have 2, and we actually have this one right here. That shows a box, but it doesn't show us what the number is for the number of degrees. But we know that that box tells us it's a right angle, and all right angles are 90 degrees. So whenever you see that box, that's the first thing you should do is fill in that 90 degrees. All right, so we have those 3 angles. They're on a line, so we're going to write our sentence first. Okay, so we're going to write, there's 3 angles, sorry. I need to see what they are. Z, 90, and 19. So we have Z, 90, and 19. These are angles on a line, which means they add up to 180. So again, I'm just going to highlight this real quick. This is our vocabulary word. We have angles on a line, and that tells us they add up to 180. So you always need those 2 things in your sentences. All right, so we know those are angles on a line. They add up to 180, so we're going to set up and solve our equation. So we have Z, we have 90, we have 19. Those are our 3 angles. We're going to add them up to 180 because it's a straight line, straight angle. Now, before I start doing that, I'm going to combine my like terms here. I have 90 and 19. So if I add that in the calculator, 90 plus 19 is 109. So I'm going to solve. I'm going to subtract 109 from both sides. So z equals, so 180, you can do this in the calculator, 180 minus 109 is 71. Now let's go back up and make sure we've answered the question. The question says to find the value of z, and we've done that. Here's our value for z. That is our actual answer. Z is 71. All right, moving to example 3. Example 3 says two lines meet at a point that is also the endpoint of a ray. Complete sentence, we're going to describe the relationship. So here's our angle relationship. Again, I see a box there, so the first thing we should do is write 90 degrees. Okay, here's my straight line. You're always looking for that straight line. There's 3 angles here, C, 90, and 17. So let's write our sentence. We have C, 19, oh, not 19, 90, sorry. C, 90, and 17. Let me just make sure. Okay. These are angles on a line, which means they add up to 180 degrees. Okay, so again, I'm just going to highlight this. Here's our vocabulary word. Here's what it means. All right, so we have 3 angles. They add up to 180 degrees. So C, 90, 17, they add up to be 180 degrees. Let's combine our like terms. So 90 and 17. Again, you can take your calculator to do that. We get 107. I'm going to solve. I'm going to subtract 107 from both sides. Okay, so I'm going to take my calculator, and I'm going to do 180 minus 107, which gives us 73 degrees. Now I'm going to go back and just make sure that's what the question was asking for. Let's not stop recording. The question is asking for just the value of C. Here's the value of C. So we are done with this question. Our answer is C is 73 degrees. All right, so let's go to example 4. All right, 3 lines meet at a point. In a complete sentence, we're going to describe the angle relationship in the diagram. So once again, I see that 90-degree angle. I'm going to fill that in. All right, so here I don't have a straight line yet. If I'm looking at this line here, I shouldn't say that. We have lots of straight lines. If I look at this line right here, I have this angle X. I have this 90, but I don't have this little sliver here. I don't know what that is yet. Now, if you think back to all of our vocabulary words that we've been learning, one of them is vertical angles. Vertical angles are across from each other. So this angle right here is across from this angle right here. That means they're equal to each other. So this we actually do know, which would be 8 degrees. So now we do have all 3 angles. We have X, we have 8, and we have 90. So let's write our sentence. So X, we have 8, and we have 90. Those are angles on a line because they form a straight line. And when we write that they're angles on a line, we're going to write which means they add up to 180. All right, so I'm just going to point out we have angles on a line. That's our vocabulary word. That means they add up to 180. Those are the 2 important things that we have in that sentence. So now we can write our equation. So we have 3 angles. We have X, we have 8, we have 90. They add up to 180. All right, so combine your like terms. 8 plus 90 is 98. Now let's solve. So I'm going to subtract 98 from both sides. So let me take my calculator here. 180 minus 98 gives us 82. All right, I'm going to go back up to the question. The question just says to find the value of x. That's what we did. Here's our value of x. So our value of x is 82 degrees. All right, number 5. This is very, very similar to what we just did. We need to find angles on a straight line. All right, so I'm looking at this straight line right here. Now, you can use the angles above the line, or you could use the angles below the line. Now, I have 2 of the angles below the line, so I'm going to use the ones below. So I have R, I have 122. I just don't know this one right here. Now, if you look straight across, we do know that this is 34. Well, straight across means they're vertical. Vertical angles are equal, which means this is also 34. So now I have all 3 angles here. I have R, I have 34, and I have 122. So I'm going to say that those are the angles on that purple line. So I have R, I have 34, and I have 122. We call those angles on a line. Okay, which means they add up to 180. So I'm just going to highlight this for you again, that we have angles on a line. That's our vocabulary word. They add up to 180, which is what they actually mean. All right, so let's set up our equation here. So we have R, we have 34, we have 122. That adds up to 180. I'm going to combine these 2 numbers, so 34 plus 122. Let me do that in the calculator. 34 plus 122 gives us 156. Let's subtract 156 from both sides. So R is equal to, I'm going to do 180 minus 156, which is 24. Now going back up to the question, this actually says to set up and find R. We did that. So our answer is R is 24 degrees. All right, number 6. In a complete sentence, we're going to describe this angle relationship. So looking at this angle relationship here, we can see that we hit, whoa, that's not a very straight line. Let's try that again. This is our straight line here, okay? That means that those 2 angles, right here and right here, we have our angles on a line. So there's 2 angles. One of them is 2x minus 15. That's one of the angles. The other one is 11x. So we are going to call those angles on a line, which means they add up to 180. Okay, so I'm just going to point this out here. We have angles on a line. They add up to 180. All right, so let's set this equation up. One of our angles is 2x minus 15. We're going to add the other angle, which is 11x. They're going to equal 180 because they're on a line. Now, this one's a little bit different. Instead of having 2 numbers, we have 2 terms with an x. So I'm going to add those together. 2x and 11x, when you add those together, you get 13x. Now, you still have minus 15 is equal to 180. So I'm going to add 15 to both sides to finish solving this. So I have 13x equals, now I'm going to add 180 plus 15, that gives us 195. So we're going to divide both sides by 13. So x is equal to, let me do that in the calculator, 195 divided by 13 gives us 15. So our x is 15. Now let's go back up and look. This time, it says to find the value of x, which we did, but we also need to find AOB and BOC. So let me do that next. So here's our x. Now let's find AOB. Now if I trace that, AOB Now that green is covering it up. Let me erase that green. There we go. AOB, that's AOB, is this one right here, 2x minus 15. So I'm going to replace my x with 15. So that means I'm going to put 15 in place of x. Then I'm going to do some math. So 2 times 15 is 30. 30 minus 15 is 15. So our AOB is 15 degrees. Now, the other angle they want us to find is BOC. So if I trace BOC, I'm talking about this angle right here, which is 11x. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to replace x with 15. And then I'm going to multiply those together in the calculator. So 11 times 15 gives us 165. Now I'm going to pause for a second here. I found my two angles, but you just want to make sure that makes sense. Now if I have one angle that's 165 and the other that's 15, you might want to go back in the calculator and add this angle and make sure that it really does add up to 180. You don't have to show me that. You just might want to do it in the calculator just to make sure. In this case, it actually does, so that means that we are probably correct. All right, that's the last of the notes. Go ahead and try that practice set.